Hey, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome back to the stream. I hope everybody had a phenomenal weekend and was able to spend some time with friends and family. I hope you did your homework to go outside and touch grass and make somebody else smile last week. Our stream on Friday with some underreported but very, very wonderful and heartwarming good news stories ended up doing super well over the weekend. So I hope every single one of you took that call to action very, very seriously in helping to bring a smile to people's faces in your own families, communities, schools, churches, etc. Because where we can be the light, that is so important every single day, but especially in the midst of a really, really crazy few weeks. It is Monday at 3:08 p.m. Eastern time right now, live from Miami, Florida. If you guys are newish around here, because I know we have a lot of new people, hi, my name's Isabel Brown. I usually look a lot better than this on our streams, but unfortunately I woke up with a really yucky cough and cold this morning. So if I sound a little bit funny or I have to start coughing, please forgive me. We're going to keep today's stream right at about an hour so that I do not lose my voice or have any other complications from just a cold. But, you know, it's cold season right now. It's going around, so everybody is kind of dealing with that right about now. But I'm Isabel. I'm an independent content creator, a full-time live streamer. I'm an author. Peep my new book that's coming out in March, hanging out right behind me. I do a lot of public speaking. I kind of live out of a suitcase. I'm a corgi enthusiast, hence the corgi right behind me. But most of all, I try to get up every single day and tell people the truth in our world that is rejecting the very concept of objective truth. I am so glad you guys are here and joining our little community, which we try to build as true and authentic of a sense of on our little corner of the internet here today. And especially if you are a first-time viewer with us on this Monday, please don't forget to let us know who you are and where you are watching from over in our live chat. It is a truly interactive live stream happening in real time. We are unscripted. We are truly authentic. We are as what you see is what you get as possible here on all of our channels. And all of that is thanks to you guys helping to make this independent stream out of the spare bedroom of my apartment continue to grow. So as we're getting started, do me a huge favor, smash that thumbs up or little heart button. That's the like button wherever you are watching to help us get picked up in the algorithm. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you always know when we are going live or uploading a new video. And you know the drill. Most importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button wherever you guys are watching from to help us get these channels growing. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Getter, and to our locals community, which has all kinds of really exciting exclusive content coming to you guys in the next couple of days, locals. So get pumped for that. And I want to give a huge shout out real quick before we jump into the meat and potatoes of everything we are talking about today to our amazing sponsor of today's stream, our friends over at Public Square. If you guys know anything about Public Square, you probably already know that they announced last week they've had a more than 300% growth in the last quarter of small businesses joining their platform and of people going to Public Square to look for new places to spend your money as a conscious consumer and to support businesses that share your values. A lot of that is thanks to you guys on this stream. So congrats to you for helping this company do so unbelievably well. If you don't already know, Public Square is a network of more than 65,000 small businesses, all of which share our values. They are all pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom. International viewers, because I know we have a lot of you on the stream, they are coming to you very, very soon. But right now are operational in the United States, and they have a really exciting announcement coming to you tomorrow that I'm going to help them break on my Instagram. So if you guys want to go check that out tomorrow, please feel free to do so. But it is the best place to shop for literally anything, for clothes that you're wearing, for food to be delivered to you, for somebody to help you do your taxes, for personal trainers, for coffee shops. Literally anything you can possibly imagine is on Public Square. And if you are a business owner in America of literally any kind, your small business needs to be on Public Square. I have heard nothing but massive success stories from you guys, and I see how many of you sign up on the back end with growing the people who help support your business and your customer base. Go to publicsq.com or just use that link that I just dropped in our live chat and use that same link to download their app Public SQ on the App Store or on Google Play to shop with your dollar in a very important and powerful way, impacting greater American culture as we know it. We're going to say hi to some people in our live chat before jumping in, but generally speaking, today we're covering a really interesting, hotly debated topic. It is extremely controversial, but I promise we're going to have a lot of laughs along the way because we all need a good reason to smile in the midst of a really heavy couple of days in the news cycle, and with many of us continuously having to deal with friends and family being displaced from the conflict in Israel and in Gaza. If you are one of those people, please know that you are in my prayers. I have literally been praying around the clock. It's probably why I have a cold. I didn't sleep very well last week. I too have many, many friends who live in Israel who are having a very difficult few days and who have lost loved ones, who have been redrafted for military service, and who are even having to flee their homes because of civilian violence and displacement from their homes. So unbelievably sad, ridiculous things that are going on the other side of the globe, and we will continue to cover that throughout the entirety of the stream this week, including at the end of the stream today. I'll give you just a brief update and some thoughts that I had some time to ruminate on over the weekend. But in the midst of that conversation, it's been a really interesting turn of events on social media in the US to see this debate re-spring up through the well of this conversation about whether or not America might be headed into this conflict as well, if that could yield larger international conflict like another potential world war. I think there's a lot that still needs to be seen and still discovered, and we are absolutely not there yet. I'll explain that more in detail, but a lot of people are kind of bracing for whatever happens next with what's happening in the Middle East in this last week or so, and it's resurrecting the debate whether or not America should institute mandatory compulsory military service for every single American citizen, like some other countries have, and whether or not women should be required to sign up for a military draft or conscription in the future. TikTok is sort of the hub of this debate right now, and we're going to talk all about the content that I'm seeing on TikTok related to this issue. But if you guys agree with what I'm saying, if you disagree with what I'm saying, if you have questions about it, always feel free throughout the stream to drop those things over in the live chat. And speaking of our chat, let's say hi to some people before we jump into our great conversation today. Over on YouTube to kick things off today, Brown Rice is first up. Hey, Brown Rice, glad you're here. Total Package is watching. We've got Alex, Los Ravosa, and Obadiah watching. Amy is tuning in. Happy Monday to you, Amy. We've got Nintendo Fan and Dario and Shalom back. Shalom to you, Shalom. We love to see that. Chad is watching. We've got Hamed tuning in, Frostfang, Andrew, and more. Over on Rumble, Tuco Wright, John Best, and E. Hogan are tuning in, as well as many, many more. Don't forget to use that live chat feature throughout the stream today, Rumble Gang. And thank you guys for helping us get some really insanely high viewership last week on our good news story stream. We had like 150,000 people watch that in the 24 hours after the stream. And I love that we were able to find reasons to smile in the midst of the darkness. That's all thanks to you guys, Rumble. Over on Getter, we've got Crone, Nitty Witty, Wrencher, Pagan Jewish Alliance, and Gary Upchurch watching. And the Locals gang is ready for a great stream today. Alex Padron, Tito, we've got AJ watching, Sabina is here, Emrock is watching, and many, many more. Hey, Crazy Cat Lady and Johnny. Glad to see you guys here. Okay. Let's jump right in. I made an Instagram video about this earlier, and it's absolutely hilarious to see how people are responding to this, because I too had the exact same reaction. I just could not stop laughing when I started noticing this pattern toward the latter half of last week on my TikTok feed. And if you guys aren't on TikTok, you might not necessarily know how the algorithm works, but basically the TikTok algorithm feeds you more videos depending on what you are watching and what you're interacting with. So the longer you watch a certain type of video, the more likely it is that they're going to feed you more of that video. If you like a video or you save it or you comment on it, the more likely it is that you're going to see more videos of similar nature. But kind of out of nowhere last week, I started noticing that my fiance's TikTok feed, his For You page, was feeding him as a 27-year-old American male just non-stop, almost hype videos for the American military, largely in reference to what was happening in the Middle East. And let me just say up front, so there's absolutely no confusion whatsoever. In no way, shape, or form today am I advocating for America to get involved in a war that doesn't necessarily demand our direct involvement right now. I think a lot of conservatives in America today are like jumping to say we need to go to war, or we should never go to war because war is always bad, or war is always good. And sometimes you have to, and we're not even there. We're not even remotely at the point where that conversation is currently warranted. And I'm seeing way too many politicians and way too many talking heads on live streams and podcasts and television programs try to jump in and say, it's time for war. No, it's not. Guess what? We're literally not even at the point to have it be in the near future, depending on what happens in the next few days and weeks. But that's not the point of the conversation that we are having today on this live stream. So Interestingly, though, despite not being at that point, maybe because we're sending aircraft carriers to the Mediterranean right now, maybe because a lot of talking heads in politics are trying to say it's time to go to war, or politicians are trying to say it's time to go to war, the male TikTok algorithm in America right now is just pumping out video after video after video of hype style rally, rah, 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 go USA military for young men. And so I started to notice that my entire For You page for my fiance's phone and his account was just go military, go military, go military, go military. And then my, as a 26-year-old American woman's TikTok For You page was just constantly women talking about how they don't want to be drafted, and women talking about how they would not go fight in a war, period, full stop, end of story, even if they were drafted and didn't have a say in compulsory military service. So I found the gender-based conversation about this quite interesting, because it turns out when push really comes to shove, when shit really hits the fan, men and women really are fundamentally different from one another. We like to pretend that we're not. We like to pretend that men and women are exactly the same in society, and women and men have the exact same role in society. Ironically, because we also tell people that the only way to truly affirm your gender is to cut off the body parts or to add new body parts for the opposite gender. So we say that men and women really are the same, but we don't really mean it. And that don't really mean it pattern continues to pop up in times where it's awfully inconvenient for men and women to be exactly the same. For example, if women were to be included in a draft, or if we were to go to war and have this World War III scenario happening. So I want to just show you the types of videos that I'm seeing Brock, my fiance, scroll through endlessly over and over and over again on his TikTok For You page. Then the type of stuff I'm seeing as a young woman on my TikTok. And then we're going to talk more broadly about compulsory military service, whether or not that should be a thing in the United States and what you guys think about that, and what countries are drafting women, because I think it's a very interesting conversation when it comes to legal arguments for gender equality in society. So we'll start with one second, I'm losing my audio. We're going to start with this absolute gloriousness while it's playing. I'll fix my audio. There is a copyrighted song on here, so I might have to turn it down a couple of seconds in, but just watch and feel the emotion of this particular style of video that's being fed out to men.
Today, the people of Israel are under attack, orchestrated by a terrorist organization, Hamas.
Israel has formally declared war after that unprecedented multi-pronged terror attack from Hamas.
President Biden today confirming that Hamas has killed at least 11 Americans as the terrorists threaten to execute hostages one by one.
We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
So you see this like montage of talking heads on television. The caption, time to show them why we don't have free healthcare. Eagle, 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 flag, flag, flag. And then it goes into this like Marvel movie style hype video. Like I feel like I'm gearing up for Carrie Underwood to sing about Sunday Night Football. Like this is the type of manly testosterone fueled video I probably would expect as we potentially head into armed conflict to be fed to men in algorithms. Watch this. Like, I feel like I'm about to go to the Hunger Games or something. Like, is Thanos about to snap his finger? It's so intense. His entire For You page, Videos exactly like that, just over and over and over and over again. So many funny comments like, the world's about to see why we don't have free healthcare, da-da-da-da-da, like funny, almost making fun of it thing, but like very clearly hype videos that clearly stimulate a reaction in young men. Alex just dropped in our locals chat, BRB, I'm going to the gun range, and everybody's dropping all these hilarious messages and gifts. Tito says, cue the Rocky theme. Literally, like it feels like you're just gonna win a war. You're gonna just do something with power tools. Like this is a man's man video. That's been fed to my male 27-year-old American fiance for literally days on end at this point. Meanwhile, my For You page is all women reigniting their femininity, it seems, reconnecting with their womanhood and deciding, yeah, that looks really cool for men, but I don't really know if I want to do that. I don't really know if I want to be a part of that because I don't know if I really want to be a feminist anymore. So maybe I won't want to go fight in a war if we're being totally honest with ourselves. These are the types of videos that I'm seeing. Literally countless videos.
Ladies 18 to 26, hope you're ready to get drafted. It is not just the boys.
I'm not ready right now. I just woke up, I was gonna shower and wash my hair, but
Relatable.
let me know where it is, and if I'm feeling up for it, maybe I can meet you at the battle.
If I'm feeling up for it, maybe I can meet you at the battle. But honestly, I was going to wash my hair, so I don't really know if that's a good time for me right now, to be honest with you. But the best part isn't that video, which is funny enough in and of itself, right? Like, actually, girls are funny, it turns out, because all of these videos are absolutely hilarious. But it's not the content of the video itself that is so unbelievably hilarious about this one. It is the comments on this video and the dozens others like it that I've seen on my TikTok For You page, because women are coming up with the funniest one-liners I have ever heard to try to justify not wanting to go to war and to shockingly reunite with our femininity and ignite our love of being women again, to the point that we're finding out men and women are totally different from one another. Who knew? Shocking, I know, because we've been pretending that that's not the case for way too long. If you go to this video on TikTok and you scroll through the comments responding to this girl saying, yeah, I don't know, I just woke up, I was gonna take a shower, maybe if I'm ready in time, just text me the location and I'll meet you at the battlefield. Classic American girl thing to say in response. Just you wait, they get so much better, infinitely better in the responses. If you haven't belly laughed in a long time, today is the day. Prepare for a good solid laugh, because this is what I've been doing all day, is just reading through these comments. Angel says, who's all gonna be there? Cadet Kelly didn't prepare me for this. Did you guys ever watch that movie with Hilary Duff? Iconic. Disney Channel gold. My mom said we got battles at home. What are we wearing? I don't want to be the only one in leggings. That is the most relatable thing to say as a girl. My mom is in a bad mood right now, so she said no. What's the parking situation? Because if I have to parallel park, I am not coming. Fun fact, I didn't have to learn how to parallel park when I took my driver's test, because I grew up in a really small mountain community about 30 minutes outside of Denver, and we don't have parallel parking really. We would just have not street parking, we would have parking lots everywhere. We did have to go learn how to drive on ice. That was a mandatory part of our driving experience, but I really never learned how to parallel park until I moved to a city, and it was absolutely horrifying. Now I am competent. I wouldn't say great at parallel parking, but relatable. Would I have made the same comment? Probably, if we're being honest with ourselves. Has anyone started the War Spotify playlist for us to listen to in the tank? Spoiler, it's all Taylor Swift. Literally, the entire playlist is just all Taylor Swift. Don't think I'll be coming, just not feeling it, but maybe next war. Whoever says women aren't funny, maybe this is just my weird niche sense of humor. I am deceased at these comments. Hey, what's best for battles, standing or sitting jeans? because they are different. I just checked my calendar and my hair washing schedule isn't going to line up. You guys have fun though. If you're a man, you have no idea what that means. I guarantee you. If you are a woman, that is the most relatable thing that you could have possibly said, with your hair washing schedule not lining up for battle. It just doesn't work out. Sorry. My mom said she can drop us off, but we have to find a different way home. Every single comment is just comedy gold on this video. Oh my God, sorry. I'm just now seeing this. It's been a crazy week. Let's make plans soon though. Miss you. I have a work thing. Legit, so sorry. I've gone out so much this week. I think I'm just going to stay home and chill. Busy this week. Rain check for next. I loved this one. I can't. I'm trying to save money right now. Are we eating before or after? Because you can't really do war on an empty stomach. And the creator of the video responded, let's get food before. Maybe apps? Def shouldn't be doing war hangry. Red heart. Unless I can ride with someone, I'm literally not going. I have to be home by 5:30 to let my dogs out. Hey, can someone send me the link? I want to see the menu first. Relatable. I do that before we go to any restaurant for any purpose. I will always look at the menu first. Why? I don't know, because when I go to a restaurant, I will sit down and read the menu as if I've never seen it before, but I've already chosen exactly what I wanted to eat. Can someone teach me how to do a French braid? I want my hair to look cute. Hair up or down? What are you guys wearing? Are we going for like a cute or a comfy look? Because you have to know in advance before you ever hang out with other women ever. Honestly, I worked out really hard this week and I think I'm going to listen to my body and take a rest day. Hey, what's everybody's coffee order? I can stop at Starbucks on the way. My mom doesn't know the parents of the other people there, so she said I can't go. I'm sorry, everyone. This one from 505 Gal, most relatable thing I've ever read as somebody who took Accutane twice. I'm on Accutane, so I can't really be in the sun. Are there any inside jobs that I can do? Guys, I need help. The camo pants aren't really giving, so I'm thinking of cutting it into a skirt. What do y'all think? Oh my gosh, there's a few more that were just comedy gold that I had to share with you. Kennedy says, does anyone know if we can bring friendship bracelets to trade? Post Eras Tour, you better bet that any situation is going to involve friendship bracelets in any way, shape, or form. And who knows, after Taylor Swift has completely transformed the music industry with this concert tour that she's going on across the world, maybe friendship bracelets might actually be the key to ending World War III. I'm just saying, has anybody given that a thought? It's just something to put out there because we're throwing ideas at the wall. My personal favorite is right down here from Cassidy. Ooh, I just got my period, so I don't think I can this week. Try again same time next month though. You girlies have fun. I'll be there in spirit. If you don't laugh at that, I'm sorry. You have no sense of humor. It is so funny. Like, genuinely speaking, is the funniest thing I've ever seen women do on TikTok by far. And I'm not just talking about this one video. There are countless, like dozens, if not hundreds of videos exactly like this. And every single comment is just comedy gold. But it warrants a bigger conversation about whether or not women would be included in a future draft in America, or whether compulsory military service or a draft period might even be a part of America's future, because it's been an extremely controversial part of America's past. But I don't know that honestly our country would even be ready to have that sort of conversation, let alone put something like that into action, because of how deeply divided we are as a country. My fiance Brock and I talk about this all the time, but when you think about the last truly horrible thing from a terrorist perspective that happened on American soil, you're really thinking about 9/11. And everybody likes to talk about how on September 11th, we had the worst day of tragedy the world had really ever seen up until that point on a single day. But how on September 12th, America became united in a way that we had never seen before as a country, at least since the Revolutionary War. And my parents love to tell stories about that. Graham Allen, a dear friend and mentor of mine, started an entire clothing company called Live Like It's 9/12. It's 9/12 apparel, because of how truly united America was on September 12th of 2001. But I always like to try to remind my parents, honestly, the really sad reality of what this looks like for Gen Z and for people who don't really remember 9/11. I have the absolute fuzziest memories of 9/11. I was like 4. I was 4 years old. So I vaguely remember seeing stuff on the TV, and I vaguely remember my parents staying home from school and everybody being really sad, but I don't really have a distinct memory myself about September 11th. People born after me, my 2 younger siblings, and everybody else in Generation Z certainly don't have a memory of September 11th, 2001, especially if they were born after 9/11, like my baby sister, who is 21. So 21-year-olds have no recollection of that because they weren't here for that. I don't know that if something like that were to happen again, America could unite the same way that we did on September 12th, 2001. If you look at what's happened in the last week, for example, think about all of the unbelievable division, anger, hatred, and true evil that we have seen from the hearts of America's college campuses, that we've seen scrolling through our social media feeds, that we've seen in direct messages and emails and communications sent back and forth to people that maybe you thought were your friends or even your family up until this last week, of similar amounts of terrorism happening on the other side of the globe, but still impacting American citizens. I mean, we're talking about 27 plus American citizens who have been killed in these acts of terror by Hamas. And you're talking about dozens more who are currently being held hostage in Gaza, as well as many other Americans who are stuck because our own government won't go get them. You're not seeing any sort of American sense of identity or any sort of American pride when it comes to how we've been responding to the events of the last week from a Western perspective. If anything, you're seeing more division as a result of the events of this last week. And so I honestly don't know if we were to have a very serious escalation of conflict around the world, warranting American involvement in any particular sense of a war. And again, we're not there yet. We might not be there ever right now. I don't think that really is the conversation we're supposed to have right now. But if, God forbid, that was something that we had to engage in the future, I don't know that compulsory military service or adding women to the draft would go over very well. In fact, I could probably bet all of my life savings and everything to my name that it would go really, really terribly, actually, if that was the case. But just for kicks and giggles, if we were to add women to the draft, I think it's a really fascinating concept of gender discrimination versus gender equality under law in America. And even people who you'd think might not be in favor of adding women to the draft, surprisingly, are quite outspoken about it, even in a world where we cannot define what a woman is, to the highest levels of our government, to the Supreme Court, and some of our most educated doctors and scientists in society refusing to identify or explain or describe what a woman is. Many people might shock you, and organizations and institutions might shock you for being in favor of including women in the draft, in being conscripted into the U.S. military in a future area of conflict, one of which being the ACLU, shockingly. I don't know why I expected them not to be in favor of this, but the ACLU actually published this in January of 2021. So this was a long time ago. They published this on January 8th, 2021, requiring men but not women to register for the draft is what they are calling under law sex discrimination. That's very harsh language. That is why we are asking the Supreme Court to end this practice. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, the ultra woke, unbelievably progressive ACLU says the requirement that only men but not women register for the draft, you'd think they would not be in favor of military service, period, end of story, but there you go, is one of the last examples of overt sex discrimination written into our federal law. Today, we joined 2 young men and the National Coalition for Men to urge the U.S. Supreme Court to put an end to it. I realize this is actually a very valid position to take under law, and if you truly are trying to rid society of gender-based discrimination under law in America, this actually makes a whole lot of sense from a constitutional law perspective. I do find it almost comedic, though, when the ACLU is joining forces with a group called the National Coalition for Men. I'm getting the vibes of that episode of Parks and Recreation with the men's rights group that are trying to free Ben Wyatt from the oppressive clenches of his marriage to the ultra-feminist Leslie Knope and the men's rights movement. And it's funny to me. Like, you could almost meme this, but amazingly, it is a legitimate argument for true overt gender discrimination being gotten rid of in American law and our American legal system. The ACLU said under the 1948 Military Selective Service Act, men in this country are required to mark their 18th birthdays by registering for the Selective Service System, the list of people who could be called up for the military if the government authorized a draft. Although there hasn't been a draft since 1973, young men are still required to register or they may face severe penalties. Although the government, or as long as the government requires young people to register for the draft, requiring men, but not women, to do so is sex discrimination. That's why we're asking the Supreme Court to declare men-only registration unconstitutional. Axios reported this in November of 2021, so at the conclusion of that year, that many, many times over the last several years, the American House of Representatives and the United States Senate has very hotly debated this issue. This has come up over and over and over again as amendments to specific pieces of legislation. People have used this for campaign talking points on the campaign trail when they're running for Congress or they're running for other positions in government, but it's certainly not a new subject that our American government has been debating. In November of 2021, Axios was reporting that the House and Senate were very, very close to deciding that women should be registering for the Selective Service. They said whether allowing women to serve in combat also means that they should have to sign up for the military draft has been a debate for decades. Now, an unlikely coalition of feminists, veterans, and conservatives could make it law as part of the Senate's expected package of the National Defense Authorization Act. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% positive this part of the bill did not pass. This ended up getting taken out. So women do not have to register for selective service today in America, but it has been this close to becoming law infinite times in various debates on Capitol Hill. The House included the change when it passed its version of the National Defense Authorization Act in September. This was in 2021. Mitch McConnell has been one of the politicians who for years has said that the draft should also apply to women. And there was a big commission on military, national, and public service in 2020. And that change is in line with a recommendation from what that commission ended up finding. President Biden actually asked the Supreme Court to let Congress rather than the courts decide on this issue. Why? Probably because he realized there was no way for him to win. There was no good way for him to pull one way or another on that. And decisions from the Supreme Court often come back on the Oval Office over time. But if this were to go into effect at any point in the future, if this were to become a law in the United States, the change would require all Americans, regardless of gender, to sign up for selective service from 18 to 26. If you are 18 years old, all the way through the time that you are 26, regardless of your gender identification. I have no idea how that would impact gender identity, by the way, if that has any bearing on this process rather than your true biological gender that you were born with versus how you're choosing to identify between the ages of 18 to 26. I'm sure we all could play the game of what would happen if we had another draft in that scenario in the 2020s. This would ensure their information is available in case there even were another draft in the future. It would certainly represent a major cultural milestone, Axios said, as women take on greater non-traditional and leadership roles across all facets of American life, from politics to industry to the military. It could also solve for shifting definitions around gender in society today. So this is not a new debate. It certainly isn't something that we just now are deciding upon because of conflict in the Middle East, but a lot of people are anticipating that this could become law very, very soon in America for all women aged 18 to 26 to have to sign up for selective service in the midst of escalating conflict in the Middle East and the events of this last week or so. Just as a reminder, and the 19th News, which is a very hyper-feminist news site, so don't read some of their other articles if you don't want to, but this was actually interesting. Just as a reminder, the military has not issued a draft for anyone since 1973. So in the United States, military service is not compulsory. It's not mandatory. You get to sign up if you want to, and we have very, very few people who actually choose to enlist in our military. And the country, they say, still remains deeply divided on who should be eligible for a draft if it is needed. I knew tons of people in college who were part of ROTC. I have many, many friends who have served in the military. because of what I do for my job and people that I've known throughout my whole life. And I bet you probably didn't know that in the United States, especially if you're watching from another country, there are actually less than 1% of all American citizens who end up enlisting in the military. So if we were to be in a situation of severe armed conflict, particularly around multiple locations around the globe, which is certainly something that many people are starting to think about, we would probably be really hurting for just sheer people. And over the last several years, the military has severely failed to meet their recruitment goals. Hard to see why when they're running ads for the Army about how you should join the Army because lesbians thrive in the Army after you spend your 4 years in college in a sorority. Literal ads that have been run over the last few years. Everything has just become ultra woke, ultra pandering to whatever the cancel culture mob wants you to say now. So it's hardly any surprise and any shock that we're starting to see massive, massive recruitment drops in every branch of the military in the United States. Funny enough, I saw countless TikToks this week about how people are starting to see commercials and ads for white men joining the Army again so that they think we're definitely going back to war. And I definitely saw one of you comment in our chat just a minute ago. Bridget said, I kid you not, I literally just got an ad break on the live stream, which YouTube chooses what ads to place in here, for a U.S. Army recruitment video right in the middle of this live stream. So recruitment is definitely a hotly debated conversation right now, and it's coming back into the fold. But I do think that it's highly likely, depending on what future conflict might look like with the United States involved in any particular war, that we would have a draft. So I'm really curious if you guys think that women should be required to be a part of this, and if you think that compulsory, mandatory military service even should be a thing, whether we are in a position of armed conflict or not in the United States. There's a lot of countries around the world who do require participation in the military, service in the military, and there's many, many countries that also draft female soldiers when there is a draft and when they are necessitated to enter into armed conflict. This article is from 2016. So again, not a new conversation, although one that I'm seeing all over my social media this week. Back in 2016, Danielle wrote, there's a lot of talk about whether women should have to register for a military draft in the US. Apparently that conversation is just as hotly contested today. And they highlighted in this article 4 countries that do require women to register for the draft and who sometimes are drafted depending on whether or not their countries have mandatory military service. The first is Israel. If you didn't already know this, with very, very, very few exceptions, almost every single citizen of Israel has to serve with mandatory military service for both men and women starting at age 18. Service in the IDF is a huge badge of honor. Every single person that I've known who is an Israeli citizen that served in the IDF absolutely loved their experience serving in the IDF, including every single woman I've known who served in the IDF. It's a bit of a different situation and setup compared to what the United States military looks like, but every single Israeli friend that I have has absolutely loved their IDF experience and says that other countries should do the exact same. And it is equally applied to both men and women. There are a few exemptions for people serving in the IDF, including for those expecting and current mothers and on religious grounds. So for example, the ultra-Orthodox religious community does not serve in the IDF, but pretty much everybody else in society does. It doesn't seem to have much of an impact on families, said a former official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem. He's now a professor at American University. People don't really give it a second thought whether it's for men or women. Norway, with all of their military involvement around the world, also requires women to register for the draft. Their parliament became the first European country to draft women into its military in 2013. So 17-year-old girls in Norway have to fill out a preliminary military questionnaire to help officials determine strengths and weaknesses. Starting in summer 2016, all women between the ages of 19 and 44 must complete 19 months of military service alongside of men. This article says this Scandinavian country is a leader in gender equality, requiring public companies to fill at least 40% of their board members with women, and about 40% of its parliament is female as well. North Korea requires women to register for their military draft. The often secretive government of North Korea started a mandatory draft in 2015 for female high school graduates until the age of 23, a shorter term than drafted men who must serve 10 years. Although military life in North Korea remains somewhat of a mystery, pictures of female soldiers walking along a river in high heels, this picture, surfaced in 2013. And they also highlighted Bolivia, saying both women and men older than 18 can be drafted into Bolivia's military if the number of volunteers falls short. The country appointed its first female army general last year, making her the first woman to directly command combat troops in Latin America. So there are different militaries around the world who do require women to sign up for the draft and who do require women to serve in the military, even in situations of combat. It is highly controversial here in the United States, but in some other cultures and other countries, it's really not, which I find incredibly interesting. E. Hogan says women, or it wasn't E. Hogan, it was New York 70 Cable, says women do not belong in combat over in our Rumble chat. Dutch Canadian reminds us, Gal Gadot, you guys might recognize her from all of the movies that she's in. She's a very famous actress, served in the IDF because it was mandatory for her to do so. And she talks very, very positively about her service in the IDF. I think this is just so interesting to see what you guys are thinking about it. Frostfang, I think women can serve, but I think that they should serve in roles that play to their strengths. Interesting. Los Ravosa says, imagine woke women get imprisoned and someone says to her, this woman needs to do something. And she says, sorry, I'm not a woman, I am the them or they them or something. Literally. I mean, imagine if that actually were to happen. I'm pretty sure terrorists don't really care what your pronouns are, what your gender identity is. I don't know. It's just a thought. Gary Upchurch on Getter says, yes, mandatory draft, mandatory service for all able-bodied regardless of gender, appropriate service assignments considered. Interesting. Very interesting. Sabina says, high heels? How is that safe? It's not for North Korean female soldiers. I mean, to be fair, North Korea isn't really going to war with anybody. They're just kind of up there by themselves. So I don't know really what their military is necessarily doing other than enforcing the laws of their own very dictatorial authoritarian government on their own citizens. But I don't know. It is an interesting thought. Magic Def has an opinion. Women in captivity can be used as a foil toward the overall mission. A woman being beaten and raped will divert the male soldier's attention to the mission at hand, and the unscrupulous enemy knows it. Just a thought on the battlefield. That's an interesting 2 cents and definitely something that we should be conscious of or thinking about, but certainly is a conversation that demands a larger debate and a larger conversation. But even outside of gender, there are many countries around the world who do require mandatory military service. And what I'm really curious to get your guys' opinion and your take on, because I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer to this, but it is something that many of the candidates on the presidential campaign trail are talking about right now. It's been floated around in Congress more times than we could possibly count. And it certainly is something I'm seeing a lot of debate of on social media this week. Should the United States of America require mandatory military service either for just men, for men and women, period, for anyone, for American citizens? We already know that Israel is a country that does require mandatory military service for everybody starting at age 18, with very few exceptions. But there are actually 30 countries, which sounds small, but if you think about the number of countries around the world, it's actually quite a few countries, relatively speaking, around the world who require military conscription or draft into mandatory military service. The UK ended their conscription mandatorily back in 1957. Most European countries do not have mandatory military service, but there are about 30 countries around the world that do require adults to complete military service. Among them are Cuba and Colombia in Latin America. There are several countries in Africa, namely Angola, Eritrea, and South Sudan. In Europe, Finland, I don't know what they're fighting against, but Finland requires mandatory military service. I don't know if they're just having you like build boats or fight against polar bear invasions. I don't know. If anybody's watching from Finland, please let me know what your mandatory military service looks like. Austria, and amazingly, the most neutral country on the planet, Switzerland, shocking, requires military service, but Switzerland also has substitute community service programs, hardly surprising. Military service for all is much more common in the Middle East. Israel, where both men and women join the military without many exceptions, is for 2 to 3 years. It's a well-known example of this practice. In Asia, Vietnam, Laos, North Korea, and South Korea, as well as Taiwan, still require universal military service, while South Korea has regularly made headlines in connection with the draft of K-pop stars. That was very recent. Taiwan has recently unveiled plans to extend compulsory military service to 1 year in light of tensions with China. So this is not a new concept. It's certainly not something that is unique to the United States to be debating, but I'm very curious to know what you guys are thinking about a mandatory military service requirement in the United States of America. There are presidential candidates who are advocating for this. There are many people on social media who are advocating for this. I don't know how I feel about it one way or another, to be completely honest with you. But I would be dying to know what you guys think about it. AJ says, if women were to be drafted today, they should be drafted as nurses or doctors. That is something that the UK did during World War II. Nitty Witty says, people need to be more enthusiastic about the military. So many, sadly, are not. Interesting. John Little says, I wouldn't send men to fight for this current corrupt country. Very fair point and a very valid opinion to take on this situation. John says, after seeing what Hamas did to women, I do not want to see my friends or family get raped and tortured because they are women. Also, very valid position to be taking in all of this. Obadiah says, can we draft people to finally love each other? I wish it was that simple, to be completely honest with you. Hamed says, in my country, women joining the military service after secondary school is optional. Where do you live, Hamed? If you don't mind letting us know. That's interesting and definitely should be something to consider moving forward. So obviously this is a really controversial subject. I hope that the topics on TikTok were enough to make you laugh, because dang, I had not seen that much funny stuff in a very long time. But to close out the stream, and if you guys can keep dropping your opinions in the chat, that would be super helpful. We just love to hear where you guys are coming from. I do want to just give a few thoughts over some things that I was able to sit back and think about and ruminate on over the weekend. I think turning off social media for a few days was very helpful just to gain some moral clarity about everything that's going on. But I'm seeing already this rush for commentators and content creators in particular to jump on the opportunity to position themselves on some sort of level of moral high ground with regard to the situation that's happening in Israel and in Gaza very, very quickly. And first of all, if you don't have an intimate connection to that, I don't really think that that's appropriate to position yourself on a situation of a moral high ground. But especially if you were very quiet about the story all week, you had nothing to say all week, and then are using this to somehow fight with other American political commentators about whether or not America should go to war, when that isn't even remotely where the conversation is right now. I think it's just really sad to see how truly divided we are in our society and in our country. And when I say divided, I don't just mean between left and right. I don't just mean between generations, which we talk about quite frequently. I mean, even within the people that you would call your own community, or the people that you vote with, or the people that you go to church with, or the people that you worship God with, the people that you would assume have very similar outlooks on life to yourself. I'm noticing even those people just have deep, deep divides right now. Especially the people with the loudest microphones and the most followers on social media, who are rushing to make the absolutely barbaric, disgusting, gruesome torture of innocent people, kidnapping of innocent children, rape of innocent women, and slaughter of innocent people based on their identity, based on their ethnicity and their religion. They're trying to use the situation to make it about them. And it's disgusting. It's hardly surprising, I guess, in the world that we live in today, where we just have to come up with just outrageous things to say on social media to generate clickbait and try to gain followers in this constant hamster wheel rat race to be an influencer, to be famous, whatever you want to call it. I just want to encourage you to think about things with the bigger picture at hand. To think about things not from the lens of how many retweets is this going to get me, or how many comments is this going to get on my video, but to think about this through the realm and through the lens of real people. What's happening this week in the Middle East what's happening with the slaughter of 1,400 innocent people, what's happening with children being burned alive, which, by the way, has been proven to be real. I know everybody's rushing to say it's AI generated all the images. They're not. That has been very, very much proven to be real. What's happening with the beheading of innocent babies, with the rape and abduction of innocent women who are still being held hostage, by the way. These are real things that happened to real people. They are not statistics for your Twitter account. They're not talking points for your news hit for a 15-second soundbite where you get to yell at somebody else. They're not opportunities for you to try to generate clickbait on the internet. They are real tragedies that are happening to real people and real families. And I think we're just so wrapped up in, for lack of a better term, our privilege living in the United States, that we are failing to realize our opportunity to put our own ego, our own narcissism, and our own chase for fame aside in a greater service to sharing the stories of those real people, to drawing attention to the suffering of those real people, to use our platforms not as a position to hold a megaphone or a microphone and shout into the abyss, just trying to generate something, but in quiet humility, knowing that you have a position to offer a microphone to someone else, not necessarily just to yourself. And I don't know who needs to hear that today. I know that's unbelievably vague when I'm not specifically mentioning certain people, but I just think it applies to literally dozens of people that I've seen over the last week or so who are so quick to try to generate additional controversy out of this conflict, but are very, very slow to recognize the true humanity in the people that have been victimized by this abominable violence, this inhumane, demonic level of violence. And as we start to see more and more division ramp up at the 30,000 foot societal level, what we desperately need more than anything else in our world today is people who are willing to use their microphone for good, people who are willing to use their platform for good, people who are willing to tell the truth even when it's difficult, even when you lose lots of followers. Lots of them. I know. That happened to me last week, and I'm totally fine with it. Don't let the door hit your butt on the way out if you don't want to handle the truth, to be honest with you. I just don't really have time for all of that. Life's tough. Get a helmet, in the words of some other wise people. People desperately who have the opportunity to tell the truth need to share the truth in the world that is rejecting that very concept. And I say that with a sense of urgency because truly it is urgent. Our mainstream media is not doing that. They've already started to jump into playing the games of, well, this group did this and this group did this and blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's not the point. The point is these are real people. And wherever you have the opportunity to amplify the stories of real people, to find the humanity of real people amidst this true evil that is surrounding us in the world, amidst the hatred that threatens to divide us with every single day, take it, seize it, run with it. It might be hard. It might not be easy, but where you can be the light, like we just talked about on Friday, in the midst of the darkness, is truly imperative and urgent. Over the last week, we have seen from the hearts of all of America's college campuses, essentially, calls for intifada or genocide against Jewish students on campus. And I'm sure you've all seen the videos on your social media. In Berlin, you saw people going around this last weekend with cans of spray paint, tagging homes with the Star of David, eerily similar to the Holocaust, in identifying the homes of Jewish families and where they live so that people might be able to seek violence against those people. In Chicago, you saw someone attempt murder by stabbing several times in the abdomen a 6-year-old Muslim boy and his mother over this last weekend because we are continuing to dehumanize one another, largely because of the talking points we're hearing in the media and because of the clickbait that you're seeing from social media content creators and podcast hosts and people on your Twitter feed, instead of us trying to figure out a way to use our platforms to be the light. We are going to keep talking about this situation in the Middle East as long as we need to keep talking about it. And I don't know if people are still angry about that. I don't know if people are still going to leave because of that. I mean, that's okay. I just think I have felt this sense of moral obligation to what I'm seeing this week, unlike anything else I've ever experienced as a content creator. And it's not the first time that we've talked about difficult issues. It's not the first time we've talked about dehumanization of others. It's not the first time we've covered controversial stories. We do that all the time on the live stream and in all of my other content. But the level of just true evil and hatred that so many of us have been witnesses of on our social media in the last several days, and in the mainstream media, and on our college campuses, and even within our friend groups and our families, should terrify us to the point that it demands action. It demands people to stand up and do something. It demands people to be the light in the midst of the darkness and to keep telling the truth in the world that is having a very hard time differentiating between lies and the truth. And wherever we have an opportunity to do that, we need to continue doing that. So if you're a fellow creator out there, if you know a fellow creator who really needs to hear that, send them that message, because I hope that it spurs action and it spurs true love for others, love of humanity in the hearts of people who really, really need to hear that. But we are going to be talking about the conflict a little bit more throughout the week. Today, we're working on setting up some more interviews for later in the week on the live stream, just for some more updates about what's happening on the ground. If you haven't already today or throughout this entire experience prayed with like all of your might for peace, please hit your knees and do so after this stream before you go to bed tonight, first thing when you wake up tomorrow, wherever you can. Bring this issue to somebody a lot bigger than our very broken world, to God, to pray for a radical transformation of the hearts of people who are continuing to hold others hostage. Pray for our leaders to have a more sound moral clarity in how to move forward from here, to help American citizens come home, for one, which we'll talk a lot about this week on the stream, but our government doesn't seem very keen to be doing so right now, to avoid further escalation of this violence, to avoid war, to spare innocent lives, wherever we can be praying for these things, to pray for courage for those who do have to fight right now, because it is absolutely a necessity for so many people right now. Just pray for humanity, pray for us to find the peace that we so desperately need today and the humanity in one another, because we can't do this on our own. This last week has proven to me more than anything else that humanity is doomed if we are on our own. But when we can bring things to God, that's when we have a fighting chance. So please join me in praying for all of that. We'll be working on setting up some more interviews for you guys about the situation in Israel and the Middle East right now, and just the continued conflict that desperately needs our prayers with every passing day. And I know a lot of you have been asking me about this. Tomorrow on the stream, we are covering the extremely unreported, I'm not even going to say underreported, because frankly, it's just unreported, story of the displacement of more than 100,000 Christians in Azerbaijan. Ethnically Armenian Christians in Azerbaijan. There has been an all-out slaughter of Armenian Christians for a very long time, but this last week everything escalated very, very substantially, and because the media is so focused on everything that's happening in Israel and Gaza, rightfully so, there's a lot going on there. There's a completely underreported, if not unreported, story of more than 100,000 people who have been displaced from their homes, like a true crisis over a conflict of faith that is very similar to what we are seeing in Israel, but for the Armenian Christian population. So we're going to be covering that on the stream tomorrow, because I think a lot of you guys are wanting some more info on that. Everybody's been asking me when we're going to cover it. I promise we will be covering it tomorrow. And good news is, at the end of all of this, I know we went like way happy, way sad. We're going to end way happy on the stream. There is always a reason to have hope. And I talked to my friend Gracie, I told you guys on the stream last week, for like an hour and a half the other day. And when we have the opportunity to bring our brokenness, to bring our fear, to bring our anxiety to God exclusively, not to sit on it, not to let it fester, not to let it ruin our lives or our trajectory moving forward as humanity, but to just lay it at the feet of the cross and say, I can't handle this on my own. I promise you, you will have this renewed sense of hope, a renewed sense of faith in humanity, and you'll find opportunities to see the good in the midst of all of the bad with such an ease that it cannot be explained in any other way. I spent the last couple of days really turning off my social media with very much specific intention, because I just found myself last week scrolling through Twitter, through TikTok, through Instagram, through other people's live streams, and I was seeing the same information over and over and over again. It wasn't like I was learning anything new, but I felt outraged. I felt angry. I felt hopeless. I felt afraid every single time I saw the same post with slight different variations from every single person. You don't need to scroll for 20 hours a day in order to know what's going on in the world. Wherever you have the opportunity to put your phone down, to silence it, to turn it all the way off, and to instead hit your knees instead of hitting a button to open a specific app, and pray for hope, pray for faith in humanity and one another again, and pray to see the good. I promise there are endless opportunities for us to continue smiling in the midst of all of the darkness and evil around us. So I am praying for all of you guys to have that same experience. Okay, you guys, that's it for Monday. I still have my weird little cold this afternoon, so we're not going to do a post-game show over on Locals today, but we are going to have 2 episodes of our faith-based series, Domus, on faith and the church this week, one with a very special guest coming. First one is tomorrow on Tuesday, then we have another one on Thursday. So if you guys are wanting to join us over in our Locals community for some extra content that we don't cover anywhere else in any of our content platforms, you can join us at isabelbrown.locals.com. I am dropping the link right now in our live chat to have you guys sign up for our community over there. It's a great way to get to know people, to have a greater sense of community with one another, not just with me. And it's a much more intimate, small community. So I actually get to know you guys pretty well as well throughout that process. If that sounds like something that you are interested in, you can click the link I just dropped to join us over there. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday, and we are back for the stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern to cover it all when it comes to the Armenian genocide and displacement of Christians on the other side of the globe. Lots of informative stuff, and I can't wait to have you guys there. Thanks so much.